Some believe the classics are tales lost to time, but tonight, we shall awaken them.
What if I told you, you could understand a classic play or novel in under 10 minutes? You don't need to read every chapter, just listen. Because the classics aren't dead ink on dusty pages anymore. They're timeless stories, reborn in clear, modern English. I'm Glinda. Let me guide you into this world of magic, madness, and murder. Today's story is one of prophecy, power, and blood. A man promised greatness by witches, and driven to madness by ambition. He wears the crown, but earns no peace. Because in this tale, fate speaks in riddles, guilt walks the halls, and no one escapes the cost of reaching too far. This is Macbeth. A storm rages over the Scottish Highlands. Thunder cracks like cannon fire. In the swirling mist, 3 witches gather. When shall we 3 meet again? One asks. Their voices seem to echo from nowhere. The answer is simple: when the battle's lost and won. Before vanishing into the fog, they speak a single name: Macbeth. Far below, the battle still rages. The battle below is chaos. Scotland is under siege. Rebels at home, invaders from abroad. But 2 generals rise through the smoke and blood, Macbeth and Banquo. Side by side, they charge into legend. Macbeth fights like a man possessed, his sword dripping red, his enemies falling before him. Their victory saves the crown. When King Duncan hears of it, his trust in Macbeth deepens. The old Thane of Cawdor has been executed for treason, and Macbeth, brave, loyal, unstoppable, will take his place. But Macbeth doesn't know that yet. As he and Banquo ride home through a windswept moor, the world shifts. The fog thickens. The wind dies. The horses grow uneasy. And then, in the heart of nowhere, 3 witches appear. They don't move like normal women. Their eyes burn with something ancient. They speak in unison, their voices high and low all at once. Hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis! Hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor! Hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, that shalt be king hereafter. Macbeth grips his sword. His Thane of Glamis already, but Cawdor? And king? Banquo, more curious than afraid, steps forward and says, "If you can see the future, what do you see for me?" The witches turn to him with a cryptic smile. "You shall not be king, but your children will sit on the throne." And just like that, they vanished. The silence is broken by hoofbeats. A royal messenger rides in and announces, "Macbeth, the king has named you Thane of Cawdor." Now the witch's words are already coming true. Banquo narrows his eyes and warns Macbeth. Sometimes, evil tells us truths to earn our trust, only to lead us into darkness later. But Macbeth barely hears him. Something has already awakened inside. Later, at King Duncan's castle, the king embraces Macbeth as a hero. He showers him with praise, calls him noble, loyal, and then announces that his own son, Malcolm, will be Prince of Cumberland, and next in line for the throne. Macbeth smiles. But inside, the fire grows. Back at home, Lady Macbeth reads a letter from her husband. He tells her everything: the battle, the witches, the prophecy, the new title. She believes it all. But she doesn't believe Macbeth has the will to finish what fate started. She whispers to herself, he's full of ambition, but too full of mercy to act. She knows what must be done. Later that night, when Duncan arrives to stay at their castle, Lady Macbeth greets him with charm and grace. But as soon as they're alone, she turns to her husband and tells him he must not leave this castle alive. Macbeth freezes and says, "He's my guest, my king. He trusts me. I cannot kill a man who has done me no wrong." Lady Macbeth's voice sharpens. She challenges Macbeth and says, "Are you a man? Or are you a coward dressed in ambition? You want the crown, but you're afraid to reach for it." She twists the dagger gently. "If I had made a promise like this, I'd have dashed my own child's brains out, rather than break it." Macbeth is torn. Every part of him screams not to do it. But her words cut deeper than any blade. And slowly, something inside him hardens. By the end of the night, he agrees. The king will sleep under Macbeth's roof and never wake. The night falls like a curtain over Macbeth's castle. All is quiet, but not at peace. Banquo wanders the corridors with his young son, Flence. He cannot sleep. Something gnaws at him. The witch's prophecy clings to his mind like smoke. The promise that Macbeth would be king, and that Banquo's line would follow. He prays for strength against the dark thoughts creeping in. Then he heard footsteps. He turns, startled, and finds Macbeth already awake, his face half in shadow. They speak, politely. Banquo mentions the witches, the strange dreams they've stirred. Macbeth claims he hasn't thought of them, though he's done little else. They part, and Macbeth is left alone with a racing heart. Something shifts in his mind. He sees a dagger, floating in the air, just beyond his reach. He whispers, "Is this a dagger which I see before me? The handle toward my hand?" He reaches out, but it's not there. The blade flickers like a phantom, pointing the way to Duncan's chamber. "Are you real? Can I touch you, or are you just something I see? Are you nothing but a vision, born from my own imagination?" His breath quickens. The world feels unreal. He hears a bell. Not loud, but final. That's the bell, calling him to his final judgment, whether it's heaven or hell. He disappears into the dark. Elsewhere in the castle, Lady Macbeth waits. The servants guarding Duncan lie drugged and still. She's done her part. Her hands tremble, but her resolve holds. Then Macbeth returns. His hands are red with blood. His eyes unfocused. "It is done," he says. But something is wrong. His voice shakes. "I thought I heard a voice cry out, 'Sleep no more.'" Macbeth does murder sleep. He stares at his blooded hands like he doesn't recognize them. And worse, he's still holding the daggers. He was supposed to leave them behind, to frame the guards. Lady Macbeth is furious. "Give me the daggers," she snaps. "If he bleeds, I'll smear it on the guards myself." Macbeth cannot move. He's paralyzed by guilt, by fear, by what he's just done. Lady Macbeth storms off, and moments later returns, her own hands now stained with red. She says coldly, "A little water clears us of this deed." But Macbeth doesn't believe it. His mind is unraveling. And then a knock. It's loud, sudden, real knock. One knock. Then another. Then another. The world is waking. The porter, half asleep and grumbling, stumbles toward the gate. He jokes to himself, drunk with drowsiness, unaware that everything is about to change. Macbeth opens the door. It's Macduff, here to wake the king. Macbeth greets him, doing everything he can to appear calm. Lady Macbeth joins him, playing the perfect host. Macduff heads upstairs, and finds the chamber door open. What he sees inside stops him cold. He stumbles back into the hall, shouting, "Awake, awake! Ring the alarm! The king is murdered!" Chaos explodes. Bells ring, doors fly open, voices cry out. Lennox runs. Banquo appears, stunned. Lady Macbeth gasps. And then Macbeth speaks. He claims he killed the guards, in a fit of grief and rage, and says, "Their hands were covered in Duncan's blood, I could not contain my fury." The court falls silent. It sounds noble. But something doesn't feel right. Lady Macbeth suddenly faints, real or not, no one knows. Malcolm and Donalbain, Duncan's sons, exchange glances. They don't trust what they've heard. And don't believe what they've seen. By nightfall, both have fled. Malcolm went to England, while Donalbain went to Ireland. And with them gone, suspicion spreads. The whispers begin, why would they run, unless they were guilty? And just like that, the throne is empty. And Macbeth is crowned king. He now has the crown, has the power. But peace is already slipping through his hands. Even though Macbeth has the crown, wears the robes, sits on the throne, and hears the cheers. But he cannot rest. The prophecy haunts him. The witches said he'd be king, but they also said it would be Banquo's line that would rule after. Macbeth's name would vanish. The blood he spilled would buy him power, but not legacy. He whispers to himself, "They gave me a barren scepter. They placed a crown upon my head, not to keep, but to pass on to Banquo's sons. It's not enough. It will never be enough." So he invites Banquo to a royal feast, a grand banquet in celebration of Scotland's new king. He smiles warmly. He calls Banquo noble, praises his wisdom, and casually, with practiced calm, asks where he'll be riding that evening. Banquo answers, "A short ride before the feast. With his son Flence." Macbeth watches him go. And once Banquo is gone, Macbeth summons two men. They are bitter, restless, and hungry for revenge. He twists their rage toward Banquo, blames him for their misfortunes, paints him as a traitor standing between them and justice. But Macbeth's true message is clear. Kill him. And kill his son with him. At first, they hesitate. Killing a nobleman is no small thing. But Macbeth presses harder and says, "You are men, prove it. Banquo is the enemy of your future, and mine." They finally agree. Still, Macbeth still cannot breathe easy. That evening, Lady Macbeth senses a change in her husband. He has the crown, but not the peace. He is distant, cold, whispering to himself in the shadows. She urges him to stop thinking, to enjoy what they've won. But Macbeth turns to her with hollow eyes and says, "There is one more thing I must do. We've only scorched the snake, not killed it. Better to be with the dead than live in this torment of fear." She asks what he means. He says nothing. But in his eyes, she sees it. As dusk falls, Banquo and Flence ride through the woods. The light is fading, the path uneven. There is no fear, not yet at least. Banquo is relaxed, speaking to his son, of the future, of kingship, of honor. Then, they hear rustling in the trees. See shapes moving through shadow, and steel flashes in the dark. Banquo fights back, fierce and powerful, but outnumbered. He shouts with his last breath, "Fly, Flence! Run, run and don't look back!" Flence flees into the trees, while Banquo falls, bleeding in the dirt. One killer grits his teeth. The boy escaped. The other curses and they leave Banquo's body and disappear into the dark. Meanwhile, the feast begins. The nobles arrive, the music plays, the food is served. All eyes are on Macbeth, the warrior king, the man who brought peace. Macbeth raises his cup and smiles. But inside, he burns. He speaks aside with a servant and learns the news. Banquo is dead. But Flence fled. Macbeth mutters, "Then the serpent lives, and the threat still breathes." He returns to the table and lifts his cup once more. Then, his smile fades. Banquo is there, seated at the table. He's blooded, silent, and watching. Macbeth freezes, the room begins to blur. Then he demands loudly, "Which of you have done this?" The guests stare in confusion. Lennox gestures, the seat is empty. But not to Macbeth. Macbeth hisses, "Don't look at me like that, you can't prove I did it. Stop shaking your bloody head at me." Lady Macbeth rises, and said quickly, "He's had fits like this before, they pass. Just give him a moment." But Macbeth cannot pull himself out. He speaks to the ghost, loud and frantic. "I'm not afraid of any man, I'll face anything you throw at me, just not that." The ghost vanishes. Then returns. Macbeth recoils again, shaking. Lady Macbeth grabs him by the arm and demands, "Are you a man?" He answers, breathless, "Yes, but I see what no one else does. It's like my mind's full of scorpions." At last, the ghost disappears. The room is cold and the feast ruined. All the guests are uneasy, and one by one, they excuse themselves. Lady Macbeth watches them go in silence. When they're alone, Macbeth paces the hall and says, "I'm too deep in blood to turn back now. The only way out is through." He turns to Lady Macbeth and continues saying, "Tomorrow, I return to the witches. They know what comes next. They will tell me. Meanwhile, not everyone is really fooled." Lennox, sharp-eyed, speaks cautiously to another lord. He wonders aloud how convenient it is, first Duncan, then Banquo, both are dead after dining with Macbeth. Malcolm and Donalbain are blamed. And now, Flents too? There's a pattern here, he says. Far from the castle, in England, Malcolm has found refuge. He has joined with Macduff, the nobleman who refused to attend Macbeth's feast. Macduff has seen enough. Together, they begin to gather forces. They will return. And when they do, it will not be as guests. The witches are waiting. Not on a heath this time, but in a dark cavern, surrounded by smoke and fire. They stir their bubbling cauldron, chanting spells, calling spirits from the pit. They chant, double double toil and trouble. Fire burn, and cauldron bubble. Then, they hear footsteps and find Macbeth storms in. He didn't seem as a man seeking answers, but as a king demanding control. He growls, "Answer me. I don't care how, call your masters. I must know what comes next." The witches smile and obey. The room darkens and the smoke thickens. And then, the first apparition rises from the fire, a disembodied head, wearing a helmet. It speaks and says, "Beware Macduff. Beware the Thane of Fife." Then it vanishes. Macbeth nods. He already suspected Macduff. This only confirms it. Then, a second figure appears, a blood-covered child. Its voice is clear and calm, and says, "None of woman born shall harm Macbeth." Macbeth blinks. What does that mean? Everyone is born of woman. Still, it sounds like a promise of invincibility. After that, a third figure rises, a child wearing a crown, holding a tree. It says, "Macbeth shall never be vanquished," until great Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane Hill. Macbeth frowns. That makes no sense. Trees don't move. Forests don't march. Then he begins to smile and says, "Then I have nothing to fear. No man can harm me. No forest can rise. I'm safe." But the witches aren't finished. A final vision appears, a line of kings, stretching into the distance. And every single one looks like Banquo. The last holds a mirror, reflecting endless generations. Macbeth stares in silent horror and shouts, "No! Stop! Enough! Tell me no more." But the vision fades. And the witches vanish. The room falls silent. Macbeth stands alone. What began as reassurance has turned to dread. Banquo's legacy still haunts Macbeth. And now, Macduff is a confirmed threat. There's only one thing to do. Macbeth says, "I'll act at once. From now on, no more hesitation. I'll strike before thought." He learns that Macduff has fled to England, he's out of reach. So Macbeth sends his murderers to Macduff's castle. Not for Macduff, but for his wife, his children, and his servants. Everyone really. Meanwhile, at the castle in Fife, Lady Macduff is confused and afraid. Macduff left without warning, without saying goodbye. And her son asks where he's gone, but she can't answer. She mutters bitterly, "He's a traitor. He abandoned us." Her son, who's very sharp for his age, doesn't believe it. And he says, "If he were dead, you'd be crying. And you're not." Before she can respond, a messenger bursts in and begs, "Run, take the boy and flee." But sadly, it's too late. The murderers are already there. One strikes the boy. Lady Macduff sees all this and screams. The scene descends into horror. Blood spills and innocents die. Macbeth's war has reached the home. Meanwhile, in England, Malcolm and Macduff speak. At first, Malcolm is cautious. He doesn't trust Macduff's sudden visit. So he says, "You may be working for Macbeth." But Macduff proves his loyalty, not with promises, but with grief. Ross arrives with news from Scotland. At first, he hesitates. Then, he tells Macduff the truth. "Your wife, your children, they are dead. All of them." Macduff's breath leaves his body. He stumbles backward, silent and broken. "All my pretty ones. Did you say all? What? All my children? My wife?" He turns away, unable to speak. Malcolm approaches Macduff slowly and says, "Use your grief. Let it sharpen you. Let it drive you. Be the man Scotland needs. Macduff wipes his eyes. His voice returns, low, but steady. And he says, "Bring me face to face with Macbeth. And if he escapes me, may heaven forgive him." The storm has found its shape. Macbeth, once noble, now rules with blood and fear. But across the sea, justice begins to rise. Back in Dunsinane, Macbeth walks the cold stone halls of his castle. The crown weighs heavier now. He can feel it. The walls feel closer. And the air is thinner. He paces alone, armor half fastened, clinging to the witch's words, as if they were truth carved in stone. No man born of a woman shall harm Macbeth. Macbeth shall never be vanquished until Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane. He repeats them again and again, because without them, he has nothing. But outside the castle, the tide has turned. Malcolm's army marches from England, 10,000 strong, joined by Scottish nobles, who once called Macbeth friend. Leading them is Macduff, and his vengeance burns quietly and very deeply. Before they approach the castle, Malcolm gives a strange command. Each soldier, cut down a branch from the forest. Carry it in front of you, to mask our numbers. They march, cloaked in trees, toward Dunsinane. Meanwhile, inside the castle, another kind of unraveling begins. Lady Macbeth has fallen into madness. Her mind, once sharp, calculating, and cold, now wanders in the night. A doctor and a gentlewoman watch in silence, as she sleepwalks through the halls, eyes open but vacant. She rubs her hands together, scrubbing at something no one else can see. She mutters, "Out, damned spot." Who would have thought the old man had so much blood in him? Her guilt has consumed her. She keeps saying, "What's done cannot be undone." The smell of blood is still there. All the perfumes of Arabia won't sweeten this little hand. The doctor watches, disturbed, and says, "More needs she the divine than the physician." He knows she cannot be healed. Back to Macbeth, he now prepares for war. Puts on his armor. He barks orders. But something in him has changed. He's not driven by courage, but by fear. When told of Lady Macbeth's condition, he brushes it off and says, "Cure her, pluck from her the memory of sorrow." But it's too late. Soon after, the news comes. Lady Macbeth is dead. Macbeth stops. For a moment, everything slows. He says quietly, "She should have died hereafter." And then, he speaks the words that seal his fate. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, creeps in this petty pace from day to day. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player, that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Outside, the messenger runs to him, breathless. "My lord, I saw it with my own eyes. Birnam Wood is moving." Macbeth's face goes still. The prophecy. The forest. It's coming. Then his face hardens, and he says, "If this be false, you'll hang for it. If it's true, then I'm finished." And so, the battle begins. Macbeth fights like a beast. He has no fear. No hesitation. He cuts down men as they charge. Blood flies. Steel clashes. But the army breaks through. And then, Macduff finds him. Macbeth sees him and sneers. "No man of woman born can harm me." But Macduff doesn't flinch and says, "I was not born of woman. I was from my mother's womb, untimely ripped." Macbeth's eyes widen. For the first time, he feels death coming. But he does not run. They fight. And Macduff kills him. The tyrant falls. A moment later, Macduff holds Macbeth's severed head. The battle is over. Malcolm is named king. He calls the exiles home, honors the loyal, and begins to rebuild what Macbeth destroyed. Scotland breathes again. After all, the witches gave Macbeth a crown. But never peace. And in the end, not even his name survives. Another story remembered, but the library is endless. Subscribe, and journey with me again where old tales come to life.